special power. Everyone has something they're passionate about. Everyone is a subject matter expert. Here at Nerdmasters, we help you share your expertise. In our digital world, we Toastmasters must master basic communication technologies in conjunction with speaking and leadership skills. We formed the Nerdmasters Advanced Club to expand our understanding of technology so we can better serve our clubs and our communities. We are nerdy Toastmasters, enthusiastically exploring the intersection of technology, leadership, communication, and nerdly pop culture. Welcome to the Nerdcasters podcast.
Game begin.
Well, hello and welcome to the Nerdcasters podcast. Welcome, everyone. Today, I am your host, James O'Farron, President, and we have Robin Lee with us as our co-host, and we are introducing you to another of our Nerdly cohort, Sherry Simmons, who is a longtime member of Nerdmasters and a core part of our team. So we're really excited to be interviewing her today. Hello, Sherry.
Hello.
So, tell us, Sherry, what makes you tick? Who are you really?
Now, you always get a little bit of James in every podcast, in every meeting, regardless.
Can't avoid it.
Well, as far as nerdiness, I'm not very much of a nerd. So I just love coming and learning. And really, just my life is a lot of Toastmasters. And
that is your nerddom, Sherry.
that maybe that is my nerddom. But I love to travel, and we haven't done much of that for the last couple of years, so we're getting started again. And I think that's pretty much it. I mean, I have other interests, the book clubs and the investment club and things like that.
You mentioned you love to travel, and I remember from one of your speeches, you gave some really amazing descriptions of some awesome restaurants that you've encountered in your travels. So you seem a bit of a travel foodie.
Well, yes, my husband Jack is actually the nerdy foodie, and so I let him do all the picking of the restaurants, and then I get to take advantage of it.
That sounds like a fun arrangement.
It sounds really like a lot of fun, Sherry. And so I've noticed when we have our Nerd Masters meetings, you seem like you're pretty versatile. And is that part of that you just love learning, and so you're always willing to take up a topic that maybe you don't even already know about, but it's something that you're willing to investigate and research to give a speech on for our meetings?
I think that's exactly right, Robin. I really like to learn, and I guess that's what I really liked about Nerdmasters, is that there's just all things I haven't gotten into before, and I'm having a chance to learn a little bit more about that.
Fantastic. That is kind of, I believe, at the heart of really what a nerd actually is. Right? Somebody who just is just fascinated with life in general. Like they want to pick something out. Sometimes it's like a specific person. They're specific, very, very specific. They don't care about anything else except for this one subject, and they dive super deep into that. That's nerdy. But then you've got people just interested in everything under the sun, the polymaths. They're just interested in being interested. They're both just as nerdy.
Yeah.
So it seems to me, as part of being the Nerdcasters or Nerdmasters podcast, this whole conversation is about that all three of us love to learn.
Yes.
And Sherry,
right now we're learning about Sherry.
This is one of the things that maybe is. Can you tell us either more about how you do that broad spectrum learning and how it looks in your life in different ways?
Well,
Good question.
I think COVID caused a lot of learning for me, because I'd never even heard of Zoom before. And when everything shut down, it was like, oh, what what are all these groups going to do? What am I going to do with Toastmasters if we can't meet? And my other clubs and my book clubs. And I just thought, oh, we need to figure out something. And right after that, someone suggested Zoom and people started to do that. And within a week or two, I just said, okay, my clubs need to start doing this. And I don't think we missed more than a meeting because, we couldn't meet, but we couldn't meet in person, but we needed to meet. And so I set up a Zoom account right away and got people to start coming on. And there we had 2 years of meeting on Zoom. All my clubs, I have 5 clubs, I guess.
You're down to 5 now. What's been your peak?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
How many? What's the most number of clubs you've been a member of at once?
Actually, I've been mentoring another club, and there was a club in California that was trying to get chartered, and I met with them for a year, and we never did quite get enough people. So I was attending about 7 clubs, but really it was COVID that helped me. If you want to say it's a help, but
right.
that I joined more clubs, because usually I had about 4 clubs that I was active in that were meeting in person. And just because of Zoom, I was able to join Nerdmasters and Sound Advice and clubs that were really started out in Washington. And, I had another kind of a more versatile outreach as far as what we're able to do in person.
Yeah, totally. There's a whole lot more options online as far as that goes. I just recently got down to 3. It feels so weird.
Ooh,
I'm adding on another one, so it's going to be back up to 4 here soon. I got a couple here local, one in person, which is super cool, and another one online here locally. But what got you into Toastmasters in the first place? Like what sparked this whole journey at the beginning for you?
Just being afraid of speaking. I went clear back. I'm going back to my high school, actually. And some of the classes, I was in one class where I had to give a speech in front of just the class. And I think I made it through the speech, but I locked my knees and I passed out.
Class. Oh no.
Yeah. And then, even though I was scared to death of it, it never really stopped me from speaking. So I ran for class officer, got up in front of everybody on the stage, but I'd never seen anyone do that in the school. I didn't know that we'd have a lectern and maybe I could have notes there. So I memorized the speech, got up in front of everybody, and then forgot my speech at some point in the middle of it. I still don't know what I said to get off the stage or how I finished or anything. And, it kind of continued on. I would keep doing things, but I would just shake. And finally,
you weren't lacking in courage.
I wasn't lacking courage. No, but I just needed that. I needed Toastmasters, and I didn't know it. I didn't know there was any. I was down in Oregon. I hadn't heard of a Toastmasters club, and so it wasn't until I was 40 when I'd moved to Alaska, and someone encouraged me to go. And boy, I just thought I was going to go to Toastmasters meeting for, I don't know, a few months, a couple years. I'm not really sure but I just thought I'll just go till I become a good speaker.
Once you get over the fear, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's been something that has just been a love now for more than 30 years.
Wow, that's awesome. A long time. So the love for Toastmasters is, what about it? What are is it the social aspect? Is it the continuing to learn aspect, or the helping other people aspect? What are your favorite parts about Toastmasters?
All of those, Robin. I feel like if I quit or have a break in it, then I lose that little bit of self-confidence that I have gained. So I really need to continue practicing. And that's what I think of as Toastmasters, is just practicing all the time.
It's practicing in the community that's supportive and safe. It gives evaluation. I was recording a podcast episode for my professional podcast earlier today with Kyle, talking about Toastmasters and about how, he'd practiced speaking for years professionally for his business, and he didn't get any better just doing it over and over and over again. He was just developing bad habits the whole time.
Yes.
It's not until you actually get evaluated and are told, here's how you can improve, that it actually really makes a big, huge difference.
That is the most important thing, is those evaluations. Not only has that helped me in my work life and being able to help with evaluations, giving people feedback, but accepting the feedback that I needed, and just having that opportunity to learn how to do it better. It's just great.
The other dimension that came to mind when you said that, whenever you took like a break from it, you felt like you lost a bit of that, and it seems to me, this is going back to what I do professionally, helping develop community and culture to connect people and to transform behavior through that. So much of our identity, in fact, you could say all of our identity, is really in our community, communities that we belong to and are involved in and find belonging in. And that's what drives our actions and our behaviors. Our confidence to be able to do things is derived from that sense of identity. So if you disconnect from the community that's giving you a sense of identity of I am a speaker, and you disconnect from that, you lose the identity that's giving you the confidence to be able to speak effectively. Yeah, that's powerful. I hadn't even thought of it that way in that context, where you in Toastmasters, it's not just a skill, it's the identity of being a Toastmaster that actually helps us deal with fear.
No, I agree.
Yeah, that's powerful.
And some of my best friends now are people that I've met in Toastmasters.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
A wonderful thing.
Same here. That's awesome.
I have a question. Since the world is coming out of the pandemic, and meetings, I think, are to some degree forever changed. A lot of people will be continuing to work from home, at least part-time, because they found it's really helpful for family care and all kinds of things. What would you say to the people listening about how Toastmasters, practicing on Zoom, practicing in person, and practicing hybrid, how can that help people moving forward in the world?
From your experience, yeah.
Well, I think that's definitely true, that any opportunity that you have in speaking, whether it's in person or on Zoom, that's giving you a little heads up, or a little can't think of what word, a start, what word do I need there, James?
A head start, or?
Yeah, just that you're better at your job, whatever that is. I mean, like you said, people are going to be meeting in Zoom, they're going to be meeting in person, and we just need that skill no matter which way that we're having those meetings.
Yeah. It impacts so much of our lives. Like when you get better at communicating or leadership, that interface between those two, really, which is kind of the same thing. It transforms how we do everything else. It improves and multiplies. It's a force multiplier for everything that we do. Really powerful.
Toastmasters was sure something that helped me in my job. I was doing public relations, and I didn't have a background in it. I just kind of got thrown into it. And so I was doing interviews and speaking in front of people, and just Toastmasters gave me that confidence, and it really helped my job and my performance, but it also helped me get ahead. I mean,
yeah. It's a good leverage for being able to, something that's easily leveraged for improvement in your career and career performance. For sure. So, how did you get involved in Nerdmasters then?
I heard about Nerdmasters, that they were doing all this great stuff for the district and helping with contests and things like that. And that was just something that helped me I wanted to help out with those kinds of things. And it just seemed like another opportunity for me to learn and to help. And it was a great mix. So I just was so excited to join the club.
It's been great to have you.
Yeah, all the meetings have been so educational and lots of fun things.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
I've also really noticed you do step up in help in a lot of the being able to be the host or the co-host in different meetings and things. And it's one of the things that I've noticed about you quite a bit. And, maybe it's all of the Nerdmasters, once we have the skill we want to share. But I really love every time I see you stepping up and making yourself available. It is one of the qualities that I really recognize.
Oh, thank you, Robin.
For sure. Yeah, I'm always excited when like, oh, Sherry's joining another of my clubs. That's awesome.
Well, when I've thought about my nerdiness, the only thing, it takes me way back into the 80s when I first moved to Alaska. Nobody had PCs, and I have to set up an office, and they said, well, get an automatic, a computer of some kind. And I got one of the basic ones at the time where you could do a merge and send out letters to all kinds of people, and during the 80s was just an interesting time, because we went to PCs became really common, but before that we just really hadn't had them. And my office went to WordPerfect, and that might be too old for you to even know about. I have
heard the name at least.
But it was a wonderful it was a word processing program. And I loved it. And I would take the manuals, and that's what I would read at night. And I became the trainer for our office, and it was really fun, and I enjoyed doing that. And I think that was the time when I felt the most nerdy, because I really was trying to learn computers.
I love it. I think it definitely counts for nerd cred.
Especially at that time.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
Of course now kids don't necessarily consider themselves nerdy, but they of course know how to use all their devices for social media. But back then, that you were willing to read all the manuals and get on board so that you could teach other people, that is definitely the nerdiness coming out.
That early adopter bit. Oh man, that is awesome. So when you are, I'm just curious, so you obviously have, I was thinking from your courage from earlier, but also like sitting and reading your manuals at night. It sounds like you got a stubborn streak with you too.
Oh, I'm sure both my husband and my sisters would say yes. She's definitely stubborn. I'm a Taurus, so that fits right in there.
Fair. That is awesome.
Does it get you in trouble with them, or do they accept and allow your strengths?
Kind of both. I'm the oldest sister of four girls, so it's kind of,
you get to be the boss.
I do. and they've gotten me T-shirts that say something like that. I'm the big sister, I'm the boss, So yeah.
I love it. So what has been so looking at you've traveled around, have you visited any Toastmasters clubs around the world or on other places?
No. I have gone to a couple of, Toastmasters on Zoom now that
True.
we're doing that. But when we're traveling, my husband's not a Toastmaster, and I could
Fair.
never get him
Fair.
into Toastmasters. So
This seems to be a common theme. Kyle's wife, my wife, your husband. It's really hard to drag them along sometimes.
yes.
They won't drink the Kool-Aid.
Oh, I know. And you think they really should.
I know they should.
They can have parallel and equal, but different interests.
Yes.
So you just find when there's a Toastmasters meeting, you find something really delightful for him that he'd really get excited about. So you can slip off to that Toastmasters meeting while he gets involved in whatever would interest him.
Yeah.
So if he's super interested in food stuff, I don't know if I want to miss out on that either.
Yeah, that's true.
Speaking of which, what's been like? This is not Toastmasters related. But what's like your favorite restaurant that you've been to in your travels? I'm a foodie, so I'm interested.
Wow, that is really hard, and especially since I don't know, so many of the places have closed and different things have happened in the last couple of years.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But I think you mentioned that my speech when we were talking about food, and that was actually a place that's 30 miles from my home.
Oh, right.
So it's called the Double Muskie, and it is down south of Anchorage in Girdwood, and it's a beautiful drive. It's a Cajun restaurant, and it just has fabulous food.
One of these days, I'm going to get up there to Alaska, and I'm going to visit.
Yes, definitely.
Fantastic. Well, what are some of in your experience? You've been, attended a lot of Toastmasters clubs, been all over the place. What do you feel is particularly unique about Nerdmasters? We've already talked a little bit about, why you joined in the first place, because of its uniqueness to a degree. But what are some of the things about that really kind of makes it stand out, that makes it special in that sense for you?
Well, it's a fun club for one thing. I think that everybody does have fun attending it, and you make it really fun. James is president right now, and
I do my best.
I think everyone in it has their special thing that they are good at and that they enjoy, and they bring that to the meeting and help share it. And we just have some really interesting speakers and interesting things that we learn.
I will say this. One of our, for those listeners who don't know this, one of our recurring ritual traditions for our club is having icebreaker meetings.
Yes.
Where as many of the members as possible do an icebreaker. This is a 4 to 6 minute shorter speech and introducing some of their nerddoms. And Sherry was one of the first ones in that first set, if I remember right, of Happy Little Nerds. And she talked, what was your nerddom that you brought up? You talked about how you weren't a nerd properly, but you talked about some of the things that you were interested in. I'm trying to remember which ones you brought up, though.
Oh,
that was like a year ago now.
Yeah, and really, I felt like I spoke mostly about how I'm not a nerd.
Yeah, I think that was your title.
yeah, and how really the nerds in the club have accepted all of us, no matter how nerdy we are, and it's just a great club for wanting to embrace people in whatever level they are and whatever they want to make their role. So for me, trying to I feel like I'm gaining information rather than sharing it. In most of my other clubs, I feel like I'm kind of the expert or the person that's been around the most.
Well, you're the most nerdy in other clubs.
Yeah,
you can do the nerdling and Nerdmasters.
That's right. So it's a club that I like going because I feel like I can just try to absorb as much as I can and keep learning.
And just be yourself. Yeah. But it was funny because after that speech, I think it was also Carolyn gave her speech there too. And she's another, started as a Luddite and now she's a nerdling. And a couple people joined after that meeting specifically because of your speeches on yours and Carolyn's, because they're like, we weren't sure if we fit in. Like, are we nerdy enough? Like, well, if they're in there and they're like, how I don't feel like I'm completely a nerd, but I'm still here and part of the culture and environment. It's like, I can't be excited. And they joined. I was like, yes, that's perfect. That's exactly it. Because it's about being interested. It's about wanting to learn. It's not about how much you know. It's about wanting to learn. That's the point.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's really beautiful.
So something that you shared after Sherry mentioned what she did, James, it's occurring to me that the culture of Nerdmasters, you don't have to be a nerd like with big glasses and whatever. It's about,
thankfully not.
you're so jazzed about a topic that you can speak on it, but you might come in character as the game master. You may be brandishing your lightsaber. That's part of the fun of the club, is that people can bring their personality and the things that they love to their speeches without fear, because they know they'll be accepted for where their area of love and passion and nerddom lies. And that doesn't happen in your average club. That it's
not as much, not for that at least,
not as much. It tends to be a little more straight-laced.
Yeah, I was just mildly chided earlier today. I was evaluated for a speech I gave, and I used the word pedantic, which is evidently too obscure. And I was like, I forgot I wasn't to Nerdmasters. I can use pedantic all I want in Nerdmasters, and I'm not going to get dinged for it.
That's right, even if they don't understand it.
They'll go, oh, cool, I'll look that up.
When people say some of those terms that are about gaming or whatever, I don't get it.
Right.
But I know they're totally in their nerddom when they say it.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I really like, the way that we manage jargon in Nerdmasters, because there's stuff that people talk about, I have no clue what they're talking about. They're in a different nerddom, and that's cool. So having people, as somebody's giving a presentation, they'll give them feedback on, oh, by the way, this one, could you explain that one more? You could have defined that better. But also putting in the chat, because the chat's always very active in Nerdmasters.
I was just going to, it made me think about the chat as we were talking. And before you even said it, I'm like, I'm going to say something about that, because we use the chat more than any other club. And it just, there's always all kinds of conversations going on, and it's fun. And
a lot of it is getting the definitions for words in the chat. Yeah. Like, I don't know what that means. Somebody else how do you spell that? They'll put it in, they'll go Google it, put the definition there during the speech, and helping everybody else understand it.
And links to resources with
all the things,
programs or games or maps or all kinds of things. I have definitely realized, one of the things that I've realized is those resources that somebody else is using for gaming. Oh, I could use that for mapping out a landscape to go with somebody's house. And other people, so each of us brings these different resources. And I think that's one of the things that I like about you, Sherry. Some of the resources that you've brought have been those out of the box blessings for me. Oh, and because it's so fun listening to you deliver it. I'm like, if Sherry says this is a good tool, I might just try that.
Oh, thank you, Robin.
Oh, I love it. Well, any other questions, Robin, that you think of before we start wrapping up? This has been a good conversation.
What are the mountains behind you?
Oh, yes. Good question.
Oh, you would ask me that. I think that this is an Alaska picture, but not one that I took. So I'm not really sure where it is.
There's a lot of mountains in Alaska. So
there are.
In Alaska. One of these days, I'm also going to go up and visit Alaska and
on my list.
The mountains that, would love to see some some of the wildlife there, and some Toastmasters, some wildlife, some restaurants, some Toastmasters, some mountains, some restaurants, some Toastmasters.
Oh, we can handle all that.
Yeah.
I've had bears walk through my yard and moose walk through my yard, and actually a little pair of a moose had a little pair of
Calves.
Thank you. Yeah, one day, and my sisters happened to be visiting here, and I have a daylight basement, and we looked out, and there's these calves just barely standing up. They're just been born. So it's a great place to be. Mm-hmm.
That is beautiful. I remember the first time I went through Yellowstone when I was had my 16th birthday in Yellowstone, and it was calving season.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had all of these bison calves bouncing all over the place. And they're as big as cars, but they're bouncing everywhere. You're like, please don't land on our car. You will destroy it.
Oh.
You were too big to be bouncing that high. Altogether not allowed.
That is amazing. I didn't know calves that big would bounce.
Oh my goodness, they prance all over the place. It's hilarious. Oh man. And being out here in North Dakota and having actually evidently a unusually harsh winter for our first winter here. I am looking forward to going and visiting Alaska because, like, yes, I can handle it. I survived.
You probably had a worse winter than we did.
Possibly.
Well, this is fun.
Man. Well, thank you so much, Sherry, and thank you, Robin, for this awesome conversation. It's been amazing. And I want to invite everyone who's listening to come visit us at Nerdmasters. Come check us out. First Wednesdays of the month. We open up the meeting early at 7:00 Pacific time to have all the chit chat socializing we can handle before we start the meeting promptly at 7:30, and we typically go for about a couple hours and have a lot of fun.
And we are having another icebreaker.
We are, yes. This episode will go live after it, but we do have them on regularly. The one that will be coming out after this one will be about collaborative gaming and how to use, like, from RPGs or Minecraft and all these kinds of things, and how to use those skills to better your career, to better your life, to deal with burnout. I'll be presenting on one of those. I'm really looking forward to that one. It's gonna be a really cool episode. So make sure you guys come and visit that for that particular meeting. It's gonna be awesome.
Whether you identify as a gamer, technology nut, or just have a commitment to studying how technology is changing and improving both leadership and communication, our Nerd Herd has a place for you. Find out more about us at our website, nerdmasters.org. Join us the first Wednesday of each month at 7:00 Pacific, and get to know us before our meeting starts promptly at 7:30. You will visit our club and enjoy it.
Resistance is futile.
Game over.